Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. We start by praising Allah. We seek peace and blessings on our Prophet Muhammad. So, this is actually week 11 for the mentorship training program. Hopefully, week by week, we're getting more comfortable, more bought into the narrative that Sheikh Adnan and Khalid Sultan and really MWN is all about. So development, service, empowerment. I have done this before. These are our 10 commitments. These are available on muslimwellness.ca. But it's always good to review them. A strong and confident Islamic narrative. So mashallah, Sheikh Adnan is delivering Friday khutbahs that are giving us something relevant, beneficial, and providing an Islamic narrative that strengthens identity and generates confidence. So I don't know if this is impacting you. Definitely it's impacting me and those who are coming to the Friday prayer. Relevant programming. So last week we talked about all the programs that are running through the center. Hopefully you had a chance to sign up for the Imam Development Program, which will have a very focused Islamic education element to it. Mentorship and Imam Development, so I already jumped the gun on that one. So this is obviously the mentorship training. A lot of people have been asking, what are we doing with this? What's going on here? Why aren't we mentoring anyone yet? There's natural mentoring happening, but we do need like a group that's kind of committed, that is bought into a narrative that's presented before we can kind of see who's out there. We're not just going to take anyone that comes in the door and give them responsibility. There needs to be training, there needs to be education, there needs to be a little bit of assessment as well. Gender inclusivity. This past Sunday we had a sisters only event. I don't know if any sisters made it out to that, but we are trying to make this as inclusive to sisters as possible. And I hope that's reflected in our numbers as well, because half of the attendants are sisters most of the time for most of the programs. Safe space is a very popular, trendy word. Hopefully we are a safe space for people feel comfortable, people feel welcome here. I'll share a quick side note. My son, who's 4 years old, came in here and he said, Baba, why don't we live here? He felt very comfortable here, which I really made me think about how safe and how comfortable he felt. I said, Baba, I kind of do live here. Sheikh Adnan lives here. No. But hopefully it feels safe for us. And that psychology of safety is important. Safe to share, safe to be here, obviously. United community. A lot of stuff happens behind the scenes in terms of, mashallah, Sheikh Adnan is leading a huge effort in the Imam Council. There's a lot of coordination with programming, Eid prayer. We try to coordinate and work with other institutions, obviously, as well. But that's never ending, obviously. Empowerment, being dedicated to empowering others to achieve their visions and goals to serve. So inshallah, we'll have a chance for you to see what you want to do in this center and through this program, what you want to commit to, where your skills, where your talents are, and see how this network and the Muslim network in general of London can help you achieve your visions and goals to serve. Wellness and personal development. So hopefully that's being achieved through this program, through all the programs that Sheikh Adnan's working on. A lot of personal development, wellness, education. Islamic spirituality is focused on personal development, obviously. Committing to genuine service and sincere interest in the community's needs and concerns. This is where we're going to need, obviously, more people on deck and contributing and seeing how to actually serve our community, inshallah. and getting closer to Allah collectively together, closing the gap. So, can you buy into these commitments? How can we develop, serve, empower individuals and community around these 10 commitments? We're still thinking about these, and hopefully you're thinking about them as well, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan for your time.
So today, today we're going to do it a little differently. Today, take out your phone. We'll do the Menti first because I haven't done it from last time. And to kind of piggyback upon what Brother Muhammad said, the reason that you're not mentoring people yet is because one of the biggest mistakes that most institutions make is that they bring in a couple of people into a room, those who committed, they ask them to start mentoring with no training at all. And that usually leads to catastrophic consequences because people who aren't trained yet, who aren't ready, who haven't done it before, who don't have the proper background, won't do it well. So really what you're doing with me for the next number of months is that I'm going to explain a number of core concepts. We've already done a couple of them. We've talked about Iqra, we've talked about activism and indifference, we've talked about stewardship and service, and there's a few more that we're going to talk about. Once I have them all read there, all the core concepts have been explained and discussed, and you've thought about them, and you have some degree of comprehension of them. And then we'll start talking about, okay, how with these basic ideas, with these core concepts, you should be able to move forward and actually work with others and actually mentor people around you. It doesn't have to happen artificially within this center where we actually put together a program and ask people to come in. It should happen organically within your own life, which is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to learn stuff, to become comfortable with the basics of what Islam is, and then to go and actually organically start being a mentor for others and seeking mentors outside of these walls, people who can help you develop yourself, because really it's a basic this is a basic human function that we've lost. So let's start. If you have coverage, you can go ahead and try and put these up. So rank these barriers to the mentality of service by effect, and this is just to kind of continue off what we had started a few weeks ago, because I didn't have time due to the fact that Maghrib is getting rapidly earlier to go through them. So I want to go through them today. So what's the biggest barrier to service? And I agree. I probably agree that. I would say arrogance is probably the biggest problem. Interesting. All right. We should probably get like a guest Wi-Fi service for this place. We'll look into getting like a guest Wi-Fi service or something, because I don't know how to fix this problem. Like I forget that some of you are broke and don't have actual.
It's just not worth it.
It's okay. You're students. I'm not judging you yet. It's all right. We'll get a guest Wi-Fi service, inshallah. It's just with that comes a certain risk that we pick up in terms of opening it. Access for others. You can probably understand what I mean, like kind of opening it for anyone to come here.
You can get geofencing.
Yeah, that's probably what we need to do.
Or just put or like at least start a password would be perfect.
Yeah, we can do that, inshallah, because I think even maybe making a specific password for the mentorship program wouldn't be a bad idea. You can move on to the one after. So again, you just go to menti.com and just put in the code up there, 33665442 is the code. All right, rank these same barriers by most difficult to purify from. Like, what are the most difficult ones to get rid of? And these are just thoughts. Again, just whatever you think is. Having agendas.
Yeah,
oh, there's something missing. There's 2 letters missing out of that one. Yes, it was written properly the first slide. I don't know why it ended up being eaten in the second one. So having personal agendas, seeking control, being judgmental, narcissism, and arrogance. That's the most difficult one to get rid of. Interesting. See, I kind of agree with this as well.
Are we doing these right now? Yeah.
Yeah, if you have, it's okay. So you can just kind of watch and think about them. You don't have to, even if you don't put it in. I, to a certain degree, agree with being judgmental being probably the most difficult one. Arrogance is not that hard. You think it's hard. It's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of a pinch. You just have to kind of put yourself through a little bit of a difficult moment and kind of suffer from the pain of equalizing and humbling yourself. But once you do it, you're off on the other. You make it to the other side, and you get rid of that way of looking at things, and you stop looking at people and ranking them and ranking yourself in comparison. It becomes a habit, and you stop doing it, and things get much better. And we'll talk about, inshallah, there will be aspects of this. Probably the last core concept will be, we'll talk about tazkiyah, and we'll talk about methods that you need to use to actually do this. There are ways to do it, and if you're not taught them, you can maybe improvise some of them, but the majority of this stuff you need to be taught. This is stuff that the Prophet ﷺ taught the Sahaba taught others, and it was continued as a methodology of behavior. Very good. Can you move on? Yeah, I agree with this. So we have just agree, disagree. Serving Allah is serving people. Do you think that's a fair statement, or to what degree do you agree with that? And we achieve true high status through serving others. Do you agree with these statements? Do you think that's correct or true? Now, obviously, if you attended this and listened to it and you're in agreement with it, you'll probably agree. But I'm okay with you not, if you think it's less of that. Interested to see which one is more of a true statement to you. I tend to find the second statement much more challenging for most people to accept. Because the way the world works, it seems it's not, right? It seems like the only way you can achieve true status is by, defeating your opponent, right? Or proving superiority of some sort in some discipline or some field. I tend not to see it that way. I don't think the Prophet ﷺ saw it that way either. The Quran definitely doesn't see it that way. Your superiority is something that is very specific to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's judgment. It's not for someone no one can tell you what your value is. And I think that's a big part of being a Muslim. Understanding that no one has the ability to actually assign you a value of being good or bad or worthy or not or unworthy. And I think as long as we allow others to do that, we continue to struggle as human beings, outside of faith for a moment even. Just as a human being, you struggle if you allow others to give you a number, to stick a value on you. This is what your value is. That's a problem. No one should have the ability. People will do it anyway, but the question is, it only becomes a reality if you embrace it. Like, it's only true if you accept it. If you don't accept it, then it's nothing. It's just somebody who has an opinion, and they don't really matter much. So that has to be something that you spend some time thinking about. Can you move on? Just a few more. So rank the ethics of service from most important to least. We talked about service having a number of ethics that it requires. Like, you need to have a number of ethics in order for you to be able to actually be a proper servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for service to be a part of who you are. And I talked about some of these ethics throughout the lectures. Empathy, humbleness, sincerity, commitment, sense of belonging, confidence. All these things are needed. You need to have a certain degree of all of them. Which ones do you think are the ones you need the most? Wallahu a'lam, to do it. You have to review my spelling, Muhammad. There's a lot of typos in it. I think you get the gist of what's going on, but yeah, exactly. So forgive the typos. I have fat fingers. Yeah. Well, I would agree that somewhere in the highest ranked ones are those two. And it's not just for service. Honestly, sincerity and humbleness are pretty much high ranked for any good ethic that you have. But definitely for this, yeah.
Sense of belonging, the last because it's misspelled.
Yeah, that's what I'm laughing at. Right, that whole thing, it needs the typos need to be reviewed. The carpet was washed today, so if it's a little bit damp, forgive us, but it's clean at least. We will start 7 sharp next week. Moving forward, the starting time will be 7 sharp, inshallah, because Maghrib is now 8:29. So if we start 7:30, that gives us barely an hour to actually get moving, and that's not enough time for us to go through what we want to go through. So 7 o'clock, inshallah, it's an hour and a half, and that should, and we will continue to move backwards as Maghrib continues to retreat throughout the summer. And once it's retreated to the point where I'll be at work during the time Maghrib is going on, then we will push it maybe to after Isha. Don't worry, Isha is 6:30 in the winter, so we'll be fine. We'll be able to pray Isha and then do this for an hour, and you can still go home and have an hour to to chill. All right, move on. I agree with this. I think this is pretty good. Describe the concept of service. Just describe it with a word. What comes to mind? What comes to your mind when you think about it? Hamakallah. Yeah, just give it a word. Or 2 words, whatever, like a sentence, whatever you want. What does it mean to you? And the reason that I've taken a long time just to get through, we haven't even gotten through the third lecture that I have prepared, is because these first 5 or 6 lectures, or 6 topics, are the cores. Like this is really what it means to be a Muslim. If you understand them, then you understand exactly who you are and what you stand for and what being a Muslim actually means. And I find that for most Muslims, especially when I was growing up, a lot of it was not the case. Like that's not what we were presented with. You were kind of presented with a different version of what all that means. So it kind of makes me think it's worth taking time to comprehend it. Wow, we actually went through a whole one of these without a silliness. MashaAllah, this is true true progress. No, I agree. I think all these words up here are ibadah is correct. Giving is definitely. Service is giving. Finding the joy in actually giving, rather than rather the joy of receiving or taking. It's a big difference. It's addictive. Once you start giving, like actually giving, actually seeing joy in people's faces when you offer them something, you can't stop doing it. And you start planning your life according to that, to wanting to do it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And there's more fulfillment in giving people than there is in receiving from them by far. And it's just, you have to just train yourself a little bit to serve. And once you do it, you'll see what I mean. You can move on to the one after, inshallah. So we talked about this last week, and I'll do a revision. I talked about being a khalifa and what that means, the concept of stewardship, being responsible and on behalf of someone else, as being the second coordinate or the second piece of the coordinate. So it requires a strong sense of responsibility. It needs the ability to play different roles in life, requires different skill sets, agree, disagree. And these aren't trick questions. Like they're just there for your, to what degree do you think this is correct, or are you fully committed to this idea, or do you think it's kind of halfway there? It's just helpful for me to kind of get a sense of it. Today we're going to put these 2 concepts together. The point of today is we're going to put them, we're going to merge them and make sure that those 2 coordinates become very clear to you. You know exactly what it means to be a Muslim, and what the 2 coordinates that you have are, and what that is going to mean for you. How are you going to live your life based on that? And that clarity is of utmost importance. And you'll understand what I mean by a Muslim shouldn't be walking around wondering what they're here to do and who they are and where they're. No, it should be clear. Once you grow up, you learn this stuff, you know what it is that you're required to do, and you move on with your life with it. And you live your life based on it. You can move on. I agree, mostly agree. The core meaning of Khalifa, what is the core meaning? There are three words up there. That all of them are correct, by the way, none of them are wrong. What's the core meaning? If we talked about the core meaning of ubudiyya, being service, what's the core meaning of being a Khalifa? Being a steward. Nija'ilun fil ardi khalifa. What does he mean by that? What is the core meaning of that word? What is it supposed to mean for you? I think is after that the last one? Is there one more? Yes. I think go on to the last one. Okay. Go on to the one after. Hold on. I will talk about this later, because I tend to disagree. I think responsibility is way higher on what the word Khalifa actually means. But leadership is the first thing that comes to mind, because you say the word Khalifa and immediately something political exists in the background. Just go to menti.com. Just menti.com. Just put in menti.com, and then you have a code on top of the. I can give you a code. I think we have one more slide, so if you don't have time, it's fine. Move on to the one more. What's after this one? Yeah, this one we'll do after at the end. Yeah, so this one. Once you go back to the lecture, inshallah. And this is of course a simple kind of just a reminder question, really not a question for you to say no to, but it's more of a reminder. This is what Islam actually turns out to be, and this is what I want you to understand Islam as. Islam, actually what it is just how you're going to do it. This is your job. You are a servant. You're a khalifa. We're going to talk about them, kind of put them together in a moment. Well, how am I going to achieve whatever comes from understanding myself as that? How am I going to do it? Like, how am I going to practice my responsibility and service? Islam is the answer. Because if that's the question that comes to mind, then Islam is the answer. Let's move. Okay. So I'm going to go in. I had shared some slides with you since Tuesday that had some of the basic ideas. Yeah. So the two coordinates, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. Right in the middle is who we are. Merging those two concepts, ubudiyya as in service rooted in love, and then khalifa as in stewardship and responsibility and leadership. Putting them together defines you and defines me, as in the eyes of God, at least. We're created, this is what we're supposed to do. This is the purpose of our life, is to fulfill these two meanings and fulfill these two concepts. So it's the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by being stewards of the earth, that's one way to put it. Responsibility for the well-being of the planet and everyone living on it, another way to put it. Individuals play different roles in service and responsibility for themselves and those around them. Not all of us have the same. I'm a servant and a khalifa, and you're the same, right? I'm responsible and a servant, and you're responsible and a servant. But the limitations of my responsibility and yours are different. The limitations and the scope of my service and yours is different. It's just different because we're in different places in our lives. We have different skill sets. We were brought up differently. We lived a different life. We have different experiences. So it's going to look different in terms of the final product, but the basic idea that's guiding it, the driving force, is the same. That's at least how it was supposed to be. That's why Muslims are all going to do the exact same thing, but they're going to have the exact same driving force behind it. I mean, they know they're doing what they're doing because they understand themselves of being servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being responsible. And being a khalifa. And then what that turns out to be depends on where you're living, when you're living, where you are in your life, when you are in your life, what you have available to you, what problems are in front of you. All of that defines it. It's not, that's why we're going to have different experiences, but we're still doing, the same good is being pursued by all of us. And this is a nice way to kind of put it. Just, we are servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and stewards of the earth. That's how this works. You're a servant and you're responsible on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's behalf. You're responsible for the service of those around you. That's how this is what it turns into. Really, life, you're truly alive the more responsible you are. This is old philosophical concepts that Aristotle talked about. Like, the more responsible you are, the more alive you are. And the less responsible you are, the less alive you are. And they defined life by the ability to carry responsibility, to feel ownership over something, to feel that you have to take care of this. It can't be left. You can't just leave it and let it go. And that's why people who have, when it comes to issues of the environment, for example, and there are people who think about it and are worried about it and take responsibility and feel like they should do something about it, even if it's just on a personal level, even if it's just on something simple that they'll change within their daily habits. And those who don't care at all. And philosophically, they talk about that being a sign of life itself, of being able to feel responsible for things. And this is what it means. Our purpose is to care for others in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name. That's our main purpose. Our mission is to be of service to everything around us within the limitations of our ability. That's what it means. You are كلكم راع, right? وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. Everyone knows this hadith, but this is where you're going to say. Ra'in means shepherd, but not of sheep. Right? So a shepherd means someone, ri'aya is to offer care. Ri'aya is care in Arabic. So ra'in is someone who's offering care. They turn into shepherd because a shepherd is a person who offered sheep care. And sheep were important back in the day because they offered you everything. So kullukum ra'in means all of you are supposed to offer care, are in a position where you should be offering care. وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. And all of you are going to be held accountable for those you are required to offer care to. In Yawm al-Qiyamah, you're going to be asked, you're going to be accountable. Okay, who was it? And then the hadith continues. No, the hadith continues. And the father or the husband in the house and the wife and the children, everyone is responsible for something. And everyone's going to be, is supposed to offer something care, someone care. And they're going to be held accountable. And they're responsible for offering whatever it is. As a father, I'm responsible for the well-being of my wife and children. And she's responsible for the well-being of me and my children. And my children are responsible for themselves. And this responsibility continues. This is how it works. We all have capacity of actually caring for others and serving others. I'm responsible for the one, so I should be serving. I have to serve my children and my wife, then I'm going to be accountable for that. And my wife is the same, and everyone, and you have the same thing. Just not the exact same definition. Because maybe right now you're not a spouse or a father, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a role. It just means your role is different than mine. Just now you're a son, or you're a daughter, you're a sibling, you're a student, you're a friend, you're an employee, whatever it is that you are, those are the definitions. Then serve within that capacity and know that you are responsible. You're responsible for the service that you're offering. You're responsible for those who you have the capacity to serve, and you are in the position to serve. That has to obviously be limited because you can't serve everyone on every capacity. That's impossible. You can't serve every living thing in the world on every given capacity. You can't take care of them financially and socially and medically and academically for everybody. That's insane. If you do that, you'll drive yourself into insanity and you won't be able to live anymore. But you have to figure out what your capacity is, what your limitations are. And then, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ. You're all responsible and you're all going to be held accountable. And that's how we're supposed to see life around us and ourselves. Practicing Islam is the way Allah wants us to be achieved. Because if you're asking that question, you should be, if you understand what I'm talking about. And I'm telling you, you are responsible for this earth. You're responsible for the service of the people and the living things on it. You're responsible for it, you have to serve it. So the question that comes next should be, well, how? فهمنا طيب يعني you keep on going saying the same thing. Well, how am I going to do it? Because it's too complex. That's what Islam is. That's what Islam is. Islam is how. This book is the how. Here's how, because you can do it in a million ways. You can serve and be responsible in a million ways. There's an endless number of ways where I can do. But then there's the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the most, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to do it. And that's what Islam is. That's what the Quran is. All these rulings are there so that we can perform this job properly, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that it will actually work. Because we may think, well, what about maybe this way will work, maybe that way will work. We'll just be trying. It's trial and error, right? So he drew some lines for us, subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, when it comes to this type of service, here's a line, don't go beyond that. Beyond that, it doesn't work. Beyond that, it becomes harmful. Beyond that, there's sometimes pain that comes from it in the long run that you can never fix. So just observe these lines. Don't do this, don't do that. And within these lines, go ahead. Serve in whatever way, whatever capacity that you want. Islam is just a method. That's why you have to learn it, because it's the methodology of how you're going to perform service. Rituals is a part of it. Bir al-walidain is a part of it. Right? All of these basic core concepts are a part of how you're going to perform service. How you're going to be responsible and perform service. Part of it is how you dress and how you walk and how you speak and what you eat. All of that is going to play into you doing your job appropriately. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how He created, so He knows what works and what doesn't. He doesn't need trial and error. He doesn't need to have, retrospective or double-blinded trials of 1,000 people to figure out something. He doesn't need that. We do, but He doesn't. So He can just tell us right off the bat, this, no, don't do that. You don't need to drink. It's not going to work. It's not helpful. Let's try it with a couple of million people, let them drink for a couple of years and see how they do after that. And then, no, you don't need to do that. This is going to only cause harm. This only brings harm. So He just draws a red line here. Here's another line. Here's another line. Zina, qatil, sariqa. Just drawing lines. Just don't do this stuff. This is, if you do them, you're not going to do your job properly. So what does that mean for you? So you need to find where your piece of the puzzle fits. What exactly are you going to? You understand you're a steward, you understand you're responsible, you understand that you're a servant. Put those together. See, if you look at it, servant is something that kind of seems a bit low, right? Like you're running, it kind of seems like in the way that it's put, you're a servant. You're serving, others are receiving your service. But on the same time, you're a khalifa. You're also responsible. You understand the paradox of who you are? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He's talking to you, you're two things. You're responsible and accountable and a leader, and you're a servant. So understanding that is really what, and by the way, all Islamic concepts carry these things that seem as if they're conundrums. They seem that they're paradoxes. They're not, but they seem like it when you first approach them. And then once you understand them, you understand Islam. Just like when we talk about tawakkul. Tawakkul is for you to depend in your heart upon Allah fully, but do your job 100%. Well, if I'm studying 100%, why do I need to depend upon? I've already studied. No. If you can understand that piece, then you'll understand what Islam is. And everything in Islam carries those same extremes of concepts. You are a khalifa. He already gave you that high status. You're responsible on His behalf. What more could you possibly want? He said, I am leaving you as a steward. You're responsible. You're accountable. I'm going to ask you what you did. But you're going to do it through service, through serving others. So it's kind of, if you understand them both, then you understand where you fit somewhere in the middle. This is not to say, okay, to put people down. You're servants. No, but you're khalifa as well. Oh, I'm khalifa. Yeah, but you're a servant. So you have to figure out how that's going to work for you. And then figure out where your piece of the puzzle fits. This is very important. What are you going to do? How are you going to achieve this? Right? That has to be, you have to define that. You have to figure out exactly what it is you're going to. I talked about this many times. I've given so many khutbahs about it, I feel like a broken record every time I talk about it. But this is really your job. People come up to me quite often and ask, what should I don't know. I don't know. Don't ask me. I have no idea what you're going to do. I can barely figure out what I'm going to do. You figure out what you're going to do. That's your job. That's life. That's your life. It's your life. Your whole story is figuring out how you're going to practice this stewardship and this service. How are you going to put them together, fuse them together, and turn them into something that's going to be beneficial? That's your story. You have to write your novel. Don't go around. We can offer some guidance. We can point out things that aren't going to work for you. I tend to be good at doing that. I can tell you what's not going to be something you should do. But what you want to do, that has to be based on you and your story and your experiences and what you understand life to be. What about rituals? Just in case some people listen to this and say, well, you talked about stewardship, you talked about any service, I love it. Then we don't necessarily have to do Maghrib today. Like it's optional, it's open because it's not really service. No, rituals is a central part of this. If you just have to understand it, you have to understand rituals within the bigger picture is what I'm trying to get you to see. That rituals are part of the story, but they're part of a bigger picture. You can't serve Allah and be a steward on His behalf, but say, I do not want to speak to you at all. I have no interest in meeting you or reading your book or knowing anything about you. That makes no sense. How does that work? How are you going to be a steward on His behalf, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and serve for His sake, but you're not willing to follow any of His commands? You're not willing to be in connection with Allah or in communication at all. That doesn't work. That is a true paradox. That doesn't work. You have to be in connection with Allah. So actually, rituals are the fuel that will allow you to do all of this. If you don't have a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will not last. Mark my words, you will not last. Hands down 100%. You won't last. You'll be a steward and a servant for as long, but if you don't have a true connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will get tired. And Iblis and the nafs will find a way to beat you. And that little piece of selfishness and arrogance and vanity will find a way through, and it will corrupt your stewardness and your service, or stewardship and service, or it'll just come to a complete halt and you'll walk the other way. That's why it's very important to have this. So if you study the concept of rituals, and we will do that inshallah, you'll find that early on the Prophet ﷺ was given قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا نِصْفَهُ أَوْ يَنْقُصْ مِنْهُ قَلِيلًا. It wasn't seen as a burden. Here, pray so that you're tired. No, pray so that you have energy. Pray because there's responsibility. إِنَّا سَنُلْقِي عَلَيْكَ قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا. We're going to throw upon you a heavy weight, a heavy load. In order for you to carry that, you have to have that connection. You have to know who you're doing it for, and you have to feel that you're connected and belong to something bigger than yourself. Performing the obligatory actions are a given for every Muslim. I hope that is clear to everybody. Rituals and acts of worship are part of the bigger picture. And rituals are the relationship we have with Allah. How do you do it how do you take responsibility for Him and serve, but you're not willing to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That seems very weird. And rituals are what allow Muslims to fulfill their roles effectively and continuously. This is what keeps you going. That salah that you pray should be the fuel that keeps you going. If it isn't, then that's something else we have to fix. Right? That's another thing that we have to maybe take a moment and fix and find a way to repair that, because it gives you an idea of how flawed our story right now is as Muslims. Very flawed. A lot of the basic stuff aren't there, and a lot of the things that should be helping us aren't, and we have to fix all this stuff. But they are things that are fixable, and they are repairable. And if you do repair them, you will see change in yourself. And a lot of people in history have done that and have moved forward and become people of true caliber and meaning, and others don't, and they don't. It doesn't matter. It's really, here's the thing, life doesn't really have, when you watch movies, there's always, the big moments are always built up to, right? They're built up to really, really well. And there's always this very specific music that comes with that, that plot, that important moment within the story, right? It's a build up, and there's a huge moment in the decision that's going to be made, and everyone's waiting for it, and you're on the tip of your seat, and you can't wait. Life isn't like that. You'll make the most important decision of your life, eating an ice cream or standing in line somewhere. Honestly, you'll do something that will literally affect not only your life, but others' life. Just standing in line, or maybe, just as you walk into the bathroom, or so doing something completely that doesn't seem as a very significant moment in my life. Where's the music? Where are the cameras to tell me this is the decision that I have to care about? It doesn't happen like that. Life doesn't happen like that, just let you know. And a lot of people don't understand it, so they'll make decisions and they don't think it's a big deal, but then they'll be like, oh, that one time I said this one thing, I was sitting, I didn't even think about it, and now I haven't been, I've been paying it for it ever since, because we think that, oh, someone's going to cue us. By the way, this is an important decision. By the way, this is going to affect you for the rest of your life. No. It's just going to happen. So you just have to be ready. You just have to be prepared so that you understand that that's how life works. And you'll see, as you grow up, you'll go back and say, wow, where I am right now was based on something that I said when I was 16 or 17, sitting with a bunch of friends, not even thinking, that's very accurate. And there was no background music that seemed like the Avengers were going to come rushing in. No, it's just a normal moment of life that you didn't take too seriously, but was very, very serious. Which takes me to the end of this is the last piece of this lecture. So if you understand that you're a steward, and you understand that you're responsible, you understand that you're a servant, all that is clear to you, you understand where you're going to go. So really what you have to think about is this. And I've given like maybe 3 or 4 khutbahs in the last couple of years on al-wajib al-kifai. If those of you who apply to the Imam Development Program, at some point we'll go into studying usul al-fiqh, which is the origins of jurisprudence. This is not understanding just how to do things, understanding based on what did scholars say this is halal and this is haram. Like based on what? What are they basing it on? Right? How do you derive a ruling on something? Like when you come and ask me a question, based on what am I saying this is yes or no? If there's no clear answer. Well, that's understanding the origins of jurisprudence. Within those things, what you'll study is that every action, every command in Islam has to have one of 5 labels. Either it can be obligatory, or it will be recommended, or it will be neutral. You can do it, you don't do it, doesn't make a difference. Or it will be unrecommended, or it will be haram, right? One of those 5 things. Within that first one, the obligatory actions, you have 2 types. You have actions that are obligatory called fard ayn or wajib ayni, meaning everyone has to do them all the time. Like salah. I can't pray on your behalf, right? I can't pray Maghrib and then, khas, I prayed Maghrib, you're good to go, Umar. You can go. No, you have to pray Maghrib too. I can't fast. We can't just like 50 of us fast Ramadan. The rest of you guys can go eat. No, we all have to fast Ramadan. We all have to perform Hajj at least once. We all have to pay zakah, right? These are called furud ayn. We all have to perform birrul walidain. We all have to do all this stuff. But then you have something called wajib kifaya or fard kifaya or a communal obligation. So this is different. This is where not all of us have to do this, but someone does. And if no one does, then we all pay for it. Like we're all going to be held accountable for no one doing it. Does that make sense? Can you think of an example? This is the stupid example I give every time I tell this story, because it's the only one I can come up with. Or the only one, yes, go ahead. Yeah, but it's a good example, but i'tikaf is not a fard. Like it's not an obligation. Like if no one does it, we're not going to be held accountable. But there's, yeah. Sorry? Yeah, garbage disposal. That's definitely a very important one. But I'll give you an example that, just the story that I use to kind of rationalize it. If we're all on a boat somewhere, or somewhere in the middle of the ocean, and someone pushes Omar off, and he doesn't know how to swim, and he's in the middle of and he's, slapping and screaming and yelling, and he needs someone to help him. So, now I don't work for the crew, right? I know how to swim, but I don't work for the crew, so I'm not probably going to be the first one to jump in. I'll wait for he looks like he's wearing like a suit. He seems like to work here, so he'll do it. Now, he doesn't work here either, so he waits for someone who does. The guy who works here doesn't actually know how to swim. So we all stand around for like 15 minutes waiting for the other person to jump in to save this guy. In the meantime, he drowns. Waliyadu billah. We're all held accountable. Everyone on that boat in the eyes of God are held accountable for doing this. Now, obviously, legally, it's the people who actually run the place who are going to be held accountable. In the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let's say we're on a ship, but it's not really a cruise. We just rented a ship and got on together as a mentorship program to go and enjoy the day in the middle of the ocean, right? And we didn't really have anything. And then you fell. So if no one jumps in, we're all going to be held accountable. This is all of our collective fault. But if one person jumps in, if Darwish jumps in and he saves him, takes him out, khalas, none of us are going to be held accountable. It's not like, oh, we should have all jumped in. If we all jump in, then we all drown because now we're all... Like, it doesn't work if we all jump into the ocean and the ship and there's no one to put down the ladder and we all die. So we can't all do it. But 1 or 2 of us have to do it, right? Understand what a communal obligation means? Now, here's the beauty of a communal obligation. Because not only does it serve as your piece of the puzzle, which I talked about a moment ago, but really, there's more ajr in it. There's more reward to it. Now, do you agree? There's more reward to it? All right. On the ship, aren't there some personal obligations like furud ayn that we all have to do? We all have to flush the toilet on the ship. We all have to clean the deck. We all have to do this. We all have to do our part. We all have to make sure that the garbage is put in the garbage bins. We have to do our thing, right? To keep. No one will thank you for doing your personal obligation. No one will. Keeping your room clean, not drilling a hole into the wall of the ship. No one's going to come and thank you for that. You're not going to be given a medal for it. But the Darwish who jumped into the water he'll be called a hero, won't he? He'll be the hero. He'll be the hero. He'll be the guy who saved the day. When you perform a communal obligation, automatically you turn into something that you weren't before. Automatically you're a communal hero because you just saved everybody. Because if you didn't do it, we would all have to pay for it. So you actually took care of it. So figuring out your communal obligation, figuring out your piece of the puzzle, this is how you become a hero. Forget about Batman and Superman and all the other silly DC, Marvel, comic, whatever things. They don't mean anything. Being a hero is just finding where the community needs you, finding something the community needs, a gap that no one's filling, that everyone is suffering from, and then you come and you find a way to fill it yourself and fix that problem. And that's how you become a hero. Not only in the eyes of the people, but in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, which is the whole point of me telling you this. This is how you become a hero in the eyes of Allah. You just figure out, you understand you're responsible, you're a servant, you understand all of that, that's clear to you. And then you find out, okay, I have to find out how I'm going to serve, because that's a service. That's a service. So, a lot of these services, by the way, aren't that flashy. They're not that fun. Sometimes it's a service of teaching children things that no one wants to teach them, or taking care. Honestly, sometimes the service isn't that flashy, but it's very valuable. He just gave me an example of garbage. Those who fix problems of garbage. It's not that flashy. Garbage isn't that fun. Garbage doesn't make the news. They don't. But if we have a problem and someone fixes it, in the eyes of Allah subhanahu, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal. Get higher rewards, life dedication and legacy. You want to dedicate your life to something, want to have a legacy, something to be known for. This is what you do. This is what you do. You play your part by figuring out your communal obligation, and then you're a hero. And then your life has meaning to it. But it has to come through that basic understanding that I am here, I'm responsible, and I have to serve. How do I do this? A lot of things you have to do. You have to pray, you have to take care of your parents, these are musts. I have to take care of my spouse, I have to take care of my friends, all that is clear. But then figure out that one piece that you can do. That little thing no one else is doing. No one else is willing to own it, to champion it, to take it up on as their personal quest in life, but you will, and you will spend the rest of your life trying to find ways to serve people, to fix it and fulfill that gap. That's meaningful. That's where you can do something. And we don't have a lot of them. We don't have a lot of people who are willing to do this. A lot of people are doing the fard ayn, but very few people who are willing to take on a fard kifaya, to find a wajib kifaya, to find a communal obligation that they're willing to give their lives to, their wealth, their money, their expertise, their time, and really focus on it. It's a problem. I have some examples for you. Just things to think about. Environment. That's a communal obligation. How many green masajid do you know? How many masajid actually follow any form of... No, not even this one. Honestly, we don't know how to do this stuff. I've asked, I don't know how. Should we have water bottles in the masjid? I don't think we should. At least that's what I was told. We shouldn't have them, but we do. Because we don't care for the environment. Here's the problem with the environment. Yawm al-Qiyamah, you're going to be held accountable. Earth will speak. Don't you know Surah Al-Zalzala? Earth will speak. إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا بِأَنَّ رَبَّكَ أَوْحَى On the day when the earth shakes and it regurgitates everything that was inside of it, all the bodies of the human beings who were once buried in it, and it starts to speak, and the human being will say, "What's wrong with Mother Earth?" Right? All that unites us is Mother Earth, right? And that's we can be different in many ways, but what we're all equal to is we all come from the earth. I don't have a part of me that is from some other. No, we're all from Earth. You're from Earth. There's no difference in terms of our biological makeup. Structure is the same. We come from Earth. She's our mother, our true mother for all of us. Yawm al-Qiyamah, she behaves differently, and the human being asks, "Ma laha?" What's wrong with her? يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا That day she'll tell her stories because the Lord told her to. Because Allah will tell your stories, and she'll tell her stories of those who mistreated her, misused her, abused her resources. Think about that. Again, something for you to champion, something for you to do. Poverty. Is poverty not a problem? All over the world, people starve. People don't have enough. People can't make ends meet. Alhamdulillah, not most people sitting here, that's not the case. We're an upper middle class society in general, as Muslims in the West. Most of us parents are pretty well educated. You're pretty well educated. If you're not, you're on your way to, inshallah. I hope so, at least. should be the plan, eh? But so poverty is something we don't feel personally, But if you have family overseas, you may. If you have people who live overseas in certain parts of the world, you may still be sending them money every single month or whatnot because they can't make ends meet because they don't have enough food on the table. It's a really, really bad feeling when there's not enough food on the table, when you don't have enough clothing, when you can't afford to send your children to schools or to give them their basic needs. It's a really ugly feeling. As a provider, as a father, as a mother, it hurts. It's not fun. It's not nice. It's something that shouldn't exist. Are there not enough resources on earth to make sure that people don't starve? Are there? Or is it that earth doesn't have enough resources? Meaning, there's too many of us, we can't all eat at once. Or is there enough? There's 100% enough, but it's not enough to fulfill the greed. There's not enough in 15 earths to fulfill the greed of one person. Forget about the greed of everybody. But there's enough to make sure everyone will be taken care of. And everyone will have sufficient provision. So this can be fixed. It's just there's no money in it. There's not a lot of fame in going and working with people who are poor, because people who are poor, they can't vote, they can't donate, right? The stuff that everyone who wants to do things need, they need voters and donators. And if you go to poor people, they can't do either, so they don't matter. I'm not agreeing with it, by the way. I'm just saying this is what the problem is. That's why you need people who will take this on, who will champion it, will be the person who takes this as a communal. Even in our own city, this happens. If you don't want to think too internationally. And I'm not saying that you have to. You live in a place, you look around, a lot of people who are starving, maybe fix that. Maybe fix that. Oppression. What does oppression turn into? Oppression turns into destruction. It turns into destruction and war and blood and hatred and trauma and genocide and people leaving their countries and demographics changing. Oppression. Oppression is a problem that we have in the world. I'm just giving you things to think about. Like these are, because a lot of people, I talk about communal obligations, like, I don't know what to do. You don't know what to do? Are you serious? Like you have no option? You don't see anything that needs to be fixed? Everything is, in your opinion, working perfectly? What are you talking about? There's an endless number of issues that need to be dealt with in this world that are not going well, that need people who are willing to take them on and to be the hero to actually change them. You just have to have the right mindset. Most people don't. Muslims, you grow up, you have that mindset because you know that you're responsible, you're a servant, so you already have that. It's a part of who you are. Now the question is what interests you, what bothers you the most, what life experiences do you have that are going to make you go in a certain direction. Disease. I don't think we need to talk. I actually made this before COVID. Like this is way before COVID. Like these slides, way before COVID. I didn't even know COVID was a thing when I put this together, but now we do. And this won't be the first or last COVID that we see in our lifetime, just to let you know. This will happen again and again. Because as long as we abuse the earth that we live on, and we abuse resources, and we abuse living things, that's how nature responds. It responds with something that will get rid of the abusers until they change their ways again. Racism. Racism in any form of ism at the end of it. Any supremacism that exists in the world where one group thinks they're better than the other, or one group is being targeted and looked down upon, whether it's towards race, culture, religion, whatever it is. Racism is a big problem. It's collective arrogance, isn't it? Personal arrogance, that's just arrogance. Collective arrogance, that's racism. That's where all of us are arrogant towards a whole group of people. That becomes racism. It has a different name now. So it requires a communal obligation, someone to carry that. Ignorance. That's what I've dedicated my life to. Ignorance. I believe an enlightened community is a community that will find its way. I don't claim to have answers. I don't know how to fix problems. I don't. Come see my house. I don't know how to fix any problems at all. But what I do know is if you have an educated population, educated group of people, you can figure out how to fix things. You can figure out how to move forward. It's not that hard if you're educated well. If you learn what needs to be learned. There's a lot of useless information out there. Right? There's a lot of useless information. Oh my God, go to Wikipedia. Oh, just endless useless information. Information that you never need to know, that you never need to study ever. How to differentiate between the 15 different species of tigers and what to do if you come up against a bear. Right? Let's take a step back, push Khalid forward, run out. That's what I would do. Ignorance is a problem because we don't know. If you don't know, like if you don't know how to live life, if you don't know what matters and what doesn't matter, what's worth spending your time on, what's worth getting upset for, what's worth dedicating your skill set and your passion to, and what's not, what's completely useless, and you shouldn't give it the time of the day. It shouldn't even let it through your filtering system. It should be left on the ground where it belongs. Takes time. That's ignorance. Understanding what it is that you have to know, what's important for you, the skills that you'll require in life to actually make it forward, to move forward. Ignorance of your deen, or ignorance of how to live life. These need to change. You have to educate people. You have to make sure people know. Knowledge is power. Knowledge has always been power. And you look at three people. People have one who has money, one who has dominance or physical strength. One has knowledge. It's always the knowledgeable one who will eventually prevail. Yes, as a knowledgeable person, you may have your behind kicked a couple of times by the physical, strong one. And you may be looking at the person who has a lot of money and wishing you had what they have, but eventually, if you are knowledgeable, all of that will not matter. And you will prevail eventually. At the end, that's what's going to matter. We know that as human beings. We've known that forever. It's not, and Iqra as a concept came and explained it to us, which is why we started with it, which is that the fundamental principle of our deen is understanding Iqra and the importance of learning and the ethics that are needed for you to learn so you can be a person of Iqra. But the human race has always known this. Has always known that knowledge is nothing. You can't add anything to this to make it better. This word, nothing. Add what you want to add to it. Money makes it worse. Power makes it worse. Add anything that's good to ignorance, it makes it worse immediately. Ignorance is, the best type of ignorance is the isolated ignorance, where there's nothing around it. Because anything you add to it just makes it worse. Add poverty to ignorance, Allahu Akbar. Well, add people who don't have enough, oh my God. That's how you ruin a planet. That's how you ruin a population. That's how you ruin an ummah. You just make sure that they don't have enough money, they can't make ends meet, and then make them ignorant and then just watch. I grew up in places like that. I grew up where I had to go after guys your age and beg them to stay in school just to finish grade 9 and grade 12. Beg them because they didn't want to, because they didn't believe it was necessary, because they grew up being told that no, just stay in school for as long as you have to do that legally, and then leave and get a tractor and go find a piece of land and work. But they don't understand that you're going to grow up ignorant. You're going to know very little. Yes, you'll get married earlier, which was a big deal for people. And I think, and I agree, they want to get married early, they want to make them some money so they can afford to get married. And yes, you can have a house. Yes, some of my friends had 2 kids when I was still a student, and they seemed much more mature and they had more going on in life, and I was still a student, and it hurt. But there's a bigger picture that needs to be seen. Ignorance. And many more. There's an endless number of problems that need to be fixed. An endless number of problems that need to be addressed. I'm not even interested in telling you what you need to do. But what I want you to do is at least think, look around. There's a lot that needs to be fixed. Can you go to the last mentee? Let's go to the last one. I just want you to take out your phone again. I want to take a look at, this is my last one. Don't worry. I want you to do it again. Fill that out. So what do you feel your communal obligation will be in? Which field do you feel that will be most meaningful to you? So you go to menti.com and there's a code on top, 336654442. We have very, very few political aspirations here today. Yeah, not at all. Disappointed maybe a little bit.
It is kind of true that you're hesitant to want that because, like, to a certain extent, like,
Yeah.
like it often ends up like almost kind of being true. Like there's like a lot of like not a lot like a lot of the people who would be the best politicians are the ones who don't seek and in fact actually acquire.
I agree, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Interesting. No, it's nice. You have like an acceptable spread. This is a good spread. Yes? I get both, I guess. I would say financial mostly, because poverty is mostly a money problem, right? Ignorance, or maybe not ignorance, but maybe domestic abuse is a social problem, right? Maybe stuff like that would be a social problem. Again, some problems can be defined in different ways, really. It's more of whatever take you have on it and what really is meaningful to you. And this is what the mentorship program is meant to be. The mentorship program is meant to be a program that we run where I explain to you the basics. We run cases, we talk about them, make sure that you really, really buy into these basic concepts, these core ideas within Islam. You get on board, and then you go and you actually start organically doing the same, educating people around you about these issues, taking upon yourself activism and communal obligations, and then that's how you spread khair. It doesn't all have to be organized under a banner. It doesn't have to all be under this or fulan or myself or them. No, it doesn't matter. What needs to be done, regardless of who's doing it and under whose name and based on what. Just what needs to be done, needs to be done. We have to make sure that we prepare those who have the intention or ability to do it to actually perform it properly. Right, very good. I like this. This is actually a nice spread. Can we go back to the, let's go back to the. All right, we do have some time, so good. So never forget, you are a Khalifa and you're Abd. You're responsible and it's responsibility and service. Those are the two words that need to be carried. Those are the coordinates. That's the latitude and the longitude. And this is where you exist in this world. That's who you are. Don't be looking for yourself. I found you already. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already described you a long time ago, gave you that. So you shouldn't be lost. You shouldn't be wondering, how do I live my life? No. It's all clear. For a Muslim, it's clear. The purpose of life and what we're here to do is not very difficult to figure out. What's hard to figure out is your specific personal contribution. Yes, that's not easy, but that is really what this is about, is how do we actually achieve that, because it does take time. Okay, so we're going to do a group discussion, so maybe just clump up into small groups until Maghrib, if we can do that. Yeah, want to stand up for a moment? Let's do it.
Stand up, I know
Here, you want to run this? Go ahead.
quickly. Just quickly.
Before they sit down, split them up more easily.
Okay.
Because they were all kind of
Okay.
two huge clusters.
Sounds good. Okay, why don't we, Simon says, touch your toes. Let's touch our toes. Everyone stand up. Get some blood flow going here. Touch your toes. Stretch. Let's go, guys. Doesn't look like many people want to do this. Okay. Okay, let's separate into groups, please, of 8. Get into groups of 8, please. Can you guys get into groups of 8? Sorry. You guys are a group? Get together?
I don't know.
Come together. Groups of 8. You guys are good? Good. It looks like they're okay. Okay, we can have a seat. I'll give this back to you. I'll grab the mics.
All right. So I can see groups already forming, so sit down. We'll do this last exercise, and then we'll let you guys, inshallah, for Maghrib, and let you guys go home. We will have, inshallah, maybe in the next week or so. Once I'm done, so this will be the completion of the third topic. Next week I'll start a fourth one. There may be 2 more. I'll open a little bit more for Q&A as we go along, because I want to do some revisions. If you just, some of you maybe have joined a bit later, so didn't hear the first topic or the second one. They are shared on the drive. I do advise that, because at the end of the 6 first topics that I talk about, I do want you to have comprehension of all of them. They're very important to me that you understand them. Like we should be on the same page when we talk about iqra, when we talk about activism and indifference, when we talk about service and stewardship. We should be on the same page and understanding what those mean. Because if you're not, then go back and listen to those lectures and kind of go through the slides and make sure that they're clear to you, inshallah, because these are important to me. So the group discussions, maybe just do quickly distribute.
B, A, B, A, B, Is this one group or two groups? A, B, and then A over
Okay,
here.
so here are the two questions. So, A, what are the main obstacles that prevent Muslims from fulfilling their communal obligations, furud al-kifaya? What causes you not to do what we just talked about or what I just ranted about for the last maybe 25 minutes? So what are the obstacles? And give examples of needed communal contributions. I gave you some basic disciplines that are open, something that are international. Give us some examples of things that need to be done in this society. And then B, responsibility and service are the two main concepts in defining our role. When we talk about ubudiyya and khilafa or istikhlaf, these are the two basic concepts. Give examples of how they work together and how the Prophet ﷺ exemplified them. This is a more difficult one, but I think you can probably come up with it. So go ahead, you have a couple of minutes.
Designate your speaker. One more minute, and have a speaker ready to speak for 1 minute.
One more minute, and make sure you have a designated speaker so we don't sit around waiting for someone to say something.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. We're going to start with
All right,
the brothers over here, Group A.
so let's start. We good?
Okay,
We only have maybe, what is it, 20 something minutes to get this done, so we have to start promptly and get it done. 10 minutes?
15 minutes.
You're right, go ahead.
okay, we had A,
Let's all calm down. Jazakumullah khair. Yeah.
and the main obstacles that we thought were correct were indifference or lack of initiative, and the fear of communal criticism, and social anxiety.
Very good. Fear of
And-
communal criticism is a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And indifference, you stole that from me, so I'm not giving you a
Yeah,
point for
no.
that one. Jazakumullah khair. Very good. But there's still another piece of the question.
Yeah.
Give examples.
So we thought of a kind of unique example. It's a centralized communal zakat system
Yeah.
where
You stole that from your dad, but okay, that's good.
no, I didn't.
He's been on my back for that for years, but no, it's a great example. It's an excellent example. Jazakumullah khair. Go ahead. Excellent example. No, I'm just joking. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. A as well or B? Go ahead. Good point. Yeah. 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 Yeah, very good. Yeah. Reinventing the wheel every time. Yeah, no, jazakumullah khair. Any examples? Specific examples? It's okay if you didn't talk about it, that's okay. If you didn't talk about it, that's fine. That's not nice. No, but a good example, an environmental one. I like environmental examples. Very good. Go ahead.
So we had point B, and the way we saw the two concepts related was that as a Muslim, every Muslim is entrusted with the idea of service.
Yeah.
However, you can't properly serve unless you display a high level of responsibility.
Yeah.
So they both work together,
Yeah.
and you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
You can't really have a responsibility if you're not providing anything,
Yeah.
and you can't really serve to a good high level if you're not responsible for anything.
good.
So the example we thought of for the Prophet ﷺ was he was obviously the most responsible out of every Muslim for the ummah. So that means he had to serve in a way unlike everyone else. So one of the most important ways the Prophet ﷺ served was through teaching his Sahaba, and he also had to teach the Sahaba in a way that would allow the Sahaba to spread the message till the end of time. So the way Rasulullah ﷺ served in this way would have to be at a higher level than anyone else, and he succeeded in serving in that way to allow Islam to spread to how far it did today. And it wouldn't have gotten there if he didn't serve to that high of a level.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair. Very good. Very nice. No? Yeah.
We also have B, and it's so we just said that with responsibility comes service, and we couldn't think of like specific examples of Rasulullah, but we also said that teaching his Sahaba, and also like when during Hijrah, he wouldn't just sit back and let everybody do the work, and he would, like, if I'm not wrong, he was also helped with the building of the masjid. And another example, we had Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu, when he was literally a Khalifa, and he would go and make sure that everybody has their food, everybody is doing well, and that's another example we had.
Very good. Very good points. Barakallah feekum.
Assalamu alaikum. We had A,
Yep.
and we said two things. So first of all, there's a lack of knowledge of what a Muslim is supposed to be as a Khalifa and a servant at the same time, and even those that do know lack the understanding of what it means to be a Khalifa and a servant at the same time. And secondly, we said there's a lack of responsibility and initiative, since only one person has to do it. Like you gave the example with the boat, everyone's waiting for somebody else to do it. And for an example, we said political representation.
Very good.
Because obviously we don't have a lot of that.
Very good. That's a very good example. I like that example. I hope that example changes. Yes, go ahead. Who has the...
Okay, so
Yeah,
we
go ahead,
also
sorry.
had A.
Yeah.
So our two main obstacles that we talked about were being selfish. So we live like in a very individualistic society where people like work to ship their own agendas, and they don't really look at what they could be doing outside of that. And our second one was being lazy, like that lack of drive and initiative is what other people have talked about as well. And some examples we had were even just like showing up to like protest and like being there to support people like where they need to be supported.
Yeah. Very good. These are good points. We have to figure out how to fix these things. No, very, very good. Who's... you guys? Go ahead, Fadli. You just have to give it a second once you turn it on. It turns green, give it a second.
So we had B, and we didn't really think of a very specific example, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He entrusted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be the messenger. So he obviously was responsible in teaching Islam to others and everything. But he also was he was serving Allah. So it's like these two concepts work together. You have to be responsible in teaching others and about Islam and everything, but you're also serving just like they are serving. And that's pretty much.
No, Jazakumullah khair. Very good. No, it's very concise. Fadli.
And we took the fact that responsibility was khilafa and service was ubudiyya. I hope we got that right. So khilafa is the fact that we are khalifa, like our job as khalifa on this earth is to be of service to people. So basically the same thing. You can't be a khalifa without being of service to others. That's how we understood it. And the examples of how the Prophet ﷺ, well, the fact that we all follow his example ﷺ means that he was a khalifa. He was exactly what it means to be a khalifa. And the way his behavior and everything he did, the way he treated his wives, the way he treated the Sahaba, the way he treated the poor, and how he would sometimes take from what he has, although he had very little. The fact that he was poor despite being the ruler says a lot. And that all, the fact that we learned from that all was a big example of khilafa and the service that he did for others as well.
Jazakallah khair. Very good. Is there another group or that it? Here, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. So we had A. So the first obstacle we agreed about is the lack of knowledge that what is fard ayn and what is fard kifaya. So we have to know first our what we need. And the other thing is how we are going to fulfill this, fulfill our part in Fard Kifaya. The second thing is the motivation. We grew up in a very self-centered orientation, so even the parents, your parents will let you okay, don't care about other people, just yourself, just your study, just your work, something like that. And also the lack of discipline, the lack of feeling of responsibility. If we have some people, they are not even responsible of themselves, so how they are going to be responsible
For
of
others,
other people.
Right.
And for the things that there is a lack of those things in our community, is, for example, who's going to take of Muslim orphans in our community. So this is one of the things.
It's a beautiful example.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. I think you wanted to say something. Can we give brother here the microphone just to make his final comment? Go ahead.
For A, I didn't hear anyone say anything about Muslims and people not understanding how to use their current abilities that they know properly to achieve the communal contributions. And some people might not understand their own abilities or how to apply them properly.
So teaching people their own skill sets and make sure they are self-aware.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. I was hoping someone would say, if you're not responsible for yourself, you can't be responsible for others. So Jazakallah khair for doing that. I was waiting for it and no one said it. How are you going to be responsible for others if you can't take care of yourself? I mean, honestly, if you're not willing to be responsible for yourself, like responsible for your own actions, for your education, for everything, for you, like make sure that you are taking care of you and that you're not allowing yourself kind of fall between the cracks and you're not kind of letting your life just kind of, you're not just in a drifting mode, just whatever happens. You have to be responsible for yourself. This is meaningless if I talk to you about responsibility for everybody and you can't even take care of you. That's a big problem. So that's very, very meaningful. And I was hoping someone would point that out. That first thing comes first. You have to be responsible for yourself, and I agree with that. So what are the main obstacles? I think everything that was shared is very truthful. Yes, there's lack of understanding. I think everyone kind of agreed to that. There's lack of knowledge. People don't really know what it means to be these things and what they actually indicate, or what the consequences of understanding being a abd and being a khalifa and what that's supposed to mean to you. So I think, yes, there's a lack of understanding. Laziness is a really cool one. Yeah, I think there's a certain degree of I don't think it's laziness as much as it's just, just because we grow up in the society where you're just very self-centered, right? Everyone kind of agreed to that we kind of come up in a society where it's all about me, just taking what I can do, and that takes away from being able to see that I should be also caring about. It takes away from that, and it takes away from thinking about the community. What can I do for my community? So I think that's something that we can all work on, and I agree. There's a lot of different obstacles. It's good. Yeah, so lack of self-belief, lack of self-esteem, where you don't feel, which is why we did Surah Al-Kahf right up front, right? When we did activism. That's why I talked about that specific story, that you can't do that anymore. If you understand that story and what that means, if you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed the world for a couple of younger people, 3 people with a dog, then you have no reason to disbelief in yourself, especially when you're a part of an ummah and you're not alone. There are a lot of people who are like-minded, that are similar to you, who have similar worries, similar hopes, similar ambitions. They want to do something, but they also lack that self-esteem and self-belief and maybe that collegiality and the companionship. And if you find people like that, you hold on to them, because that is the biggest gift that you'll ever find in life, is a friend who's like-minded, meaning who actually carries with you the same hopes and dreams and ambitions of the future, especially when they're khair, because most friends don't share that. They'll share this, stuff that are a bit more naughty, but not stuff that are based in doing something in khair, and actually building something that is beautiful and great. So I think that's a good example. Examples are, I gave them the examples I had, and then I heard your examples. And yes, I think that we don't lack examples in terms of what can be done. We don't lack that. We have a lot of examples. Unfortunately, we have a lot of gaps that need to be filled. So you have, it's a play day. You can just go and choose. Just find something that you're passionate about, something that suits your skill set, as the brother pointed out, something that you can be good at, inshallah, and then dedicate your time and focus on it. And you'll be your legacy, and that will be your contribution. Responsibility and service can only work if the other one is there. This is the beauty of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them together. Literally, they can't. If I serve but I don't feel responsible, that is the example of a teacher who doesn't care about his class but just walks in to get paid, right? And today will be about assignments will be doing, then walk out, just can't. When has that worked? Tell me when you've learned from a teacher who taught like that. Ever. You've never learned from that. Actually, all the subjects that you hate were stemmed in a teacher that didn't teach them with the passion and the care that they were supposed to be taught with. And that goes for everything. You can't serve if you don't feel ownership. If you don't feel like, no, I have to. The Prophet ﷺ, the example, the Quran twice, in the Quran, once in Shu'ara and once in Kahf. Again in Kahf, again in the beginning of Kahf. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ إِلَّمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. Another verse he said, لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ إِلَّمْ يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. What بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ means, what, are you going to kill yourself because no one's believing in you? Not suicide, no. But as in you're going to work so hard, for so long, with no self-care, to the point that you're going to end up killing yourself because they're not listening? No, don't do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet ﷺ to calm down. Just slow down. You can't force people to listen. You do your part to the best of your ability, but you don't harm yourself. You don't take away from the time that you need to spend with your family, with your spouse, with your children, with yourself. All of that has to be cared for. Your wellness is a priority. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala twice in the Quran told the Prophet ﷺ to slow down, take care of yourself. Bakhi'un nafs, that's the word bakhi'un nafsaka, is as if you're tiring yourself to the point where you're going to harm yourself for someone. But that's the level of ownership and responsibility he carried. That's why he served. So you cannot be responsible and then not have your priority to make sure you take care of those who you're responsible for. So these two concepts can't exist without the other one. Like both of them are necessary, they're necessary for each other. They complete one another. And that's the beauty of these two things in the Quran, the Khalifa and the Abd. They can't exist without the other one, or else they turn into full corruption, or else the servant is doing it with an agenda. Not because he cares, but because there's something in it for him. He's serving, but there's something in it there. Or the Khalifa isn't really there for service. He's there for the controlling part, where he gets to call the shots and tell people what to do, right? Isn't that the type of corruptions that we're tired of in this world? They come from the fact that a Khalifa is not being Abd, and an Abd is not being a Khalifa. That's all it comes down to, is if you're just taking one and running with it and you're leaving the other one. You have to have both, and when you have both, you actually do the job appropriately and properly, and you put in your time and your effort and your passion, and you invest yourself in something. You're doing it for the right reason, and you actually end up affecting people. You actually bring that forward, and the examples of the Prophet ﷺ doing it are endless. I agree with all of you. You can't think of one. Everything he did was that. That's who he was, ﷺ. I actually say, to give one example is almost inappropriate. He lived his life like this. That's how he lived his life. That's why he lived his life. To be someone who felt responsible for everyone, to serve them. That's how he lived. And that's how he walked out of this world, and he owed money. His shield was left as a collateral with somebody and he didn't take that money for himself. He had taken it to give it to somebody who asked for money. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Subhanakallah bihamdik, la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. We'll end with that, inshallah. We'll see you next week. We start 7 sharp, inshallah, next week as well. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Jazakumullahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum.